The moment I pressed play on that recording, the dining room fell so silent you could hear a pin drop. 5 faces froze in various expressions of shock. Most importantly, my boyfriend Ethan's. His fork clattered against the china as the unmistakable sound of his voice filled the room. She's completely useless. I'm only with her because her family has connections. Once I get that promotion, I'm out. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My name is Chloe, and this is the story of how I discovered my boyfriend of 3 years had been living a double life, and how I orchestrated the perfect moment to expose it. 3 months ago, I was blissfully ignorant. I worked as an events coordinator at a prestigious marketing firm in Chicago, lived in a charming apartment with my boyfriend Ethan, and was planning our future together. Ethan was ambitious, handsome, and seemed utterly devoted to me. We'd met at a charity gala my company organized, where he'd approached me with a charming smile and a clever line about how organizing such a flawless event was more impressive than any of the donations being made that night. Our relationship progressed quickly. Within 6 months, we were living together. By year 2, we were discussing marriage. My parents adored him, especially my father, who saw in Ethan the son he never had. My father runs one of the city's most successful investment firms and had already hinted at bringing Ethan on board someday. Looking back, I should have seen the signs. The way Ethan always seemed particularly attentive when my parents were around. How enthusiastically he discussed business with my father. The subtle changes in his demeanor when we were alone versus in company. But love truly is blind, and I was completely enamored. The first crack in our perfect facade appeared during a weekend when Ethan thought I was visiting my sister in Boston. My trip had been canceled last minute when my sister came down with the flu, but I decided to use the free time to surprise Ethan with a romantic dinner at home. I was at the grocery store picking up ingredients when my phone buzzed with a text from my best friend, Jess. "Is Ethan meeting clients today? Just saw him at Meridian with some blonde." My heart skipped a beat, but I quickly rationalized it. Ethan worked in corporate sales. Business lunches were common. Still, a seed of doubt had been planted. "Probably work-related," I texted back. "But which blonde?" "Never seen her before. Very cozy, though. Want me to send a picture?" I hesitated, finger hovering over the keyboard. Did I really want to see this? Was I becoming that girlfriend? "No, it's fine," I replied finally. I trust him. But later that night, when Ethan came home talking about a boring day at the office reviewing contracts, that seed of doubt sprouted roots. "Did you go out for lunch?" I asked casually as we settled on the couch. Ethan barely looked up from his phone. "No, just had a sandwich at my desk. Too much work to go out." That was the first direct lie. I felt a cold knot form in my stomach, but I said nothing. Maybe he had a reason for hiding it. Maybe it was an important client he wasn't supposed to discuss. I decided to give him the benefit of the doubt. Over the next few weeks, however, small inconsistencies began piling up. Late nights at the office that didn't match the company's schedule, phone calls he would take in another room, a growing password obsession. Everything from his phone to his email suddenly required complex passwords he changed weekly. I wasn't raised to snoop or spy. My parents had instilled in me the value of trust and direct communication. So one night over dinner, I decided to address it head on. "Ethan, is everything okay at work? You seem stressed lately?" He looked up from his plate, his expression softening into the charming smile I'd fallen for. "Everything's perfect, actually. I'm in line for a big promotion. I've been putting in extra hours to impress the senior partners." Relief washed over me. That explained the late nights and secretive phone calls. He was working on something big and didn't want to jinx it by talking about it too soon. "That's wonderful. Why didn't you tell me sooner?" He reached across the table and took my hand. "I wanted it to be a surprise. Once it's official, we can finally start planning that trip to Italy you've always wanted." Just like that, my suspicions evaporated. I felt guilty for doubting him, for allowing Jess's text to create unnecessary worry. This was Ethan. Ambitious, hardworking Ethan, doing what he did best, striving for success. The next week, I threw myself into supporting him. I prepared his favorite meals, gave him space to work late, and never complained when our weekend plans were canceled for emergency meetings. I was the perfect understanding girlfriend. Then came the day that changed everything. Ethan had left his smartwatch on the bathroom counter while showering. It buzzed with an incoming message, and without thinking, I glanced down at it. The preview showed just enough. Missing you already. Last night was amazing. Same time next week? The message was from someone saved simply as L. My hands trembled as I set the watch down exactly as I'd found it. When Ethan emerged from the shower, I was already dressed for work, my face a carefully composed mask hiding the turmoil beneath. Have a great day, babe, I said, kissing his cheek as I left. Good luck with that presentation. I called in sick to work and spent the morning sitting in a coffee shop, trying to make sense of what I'd seen. It could be innocent, I told myself. Maybe Elle was a client, excited about a business proposal. Maybe it was a colleague congratulating him on a project. The possibilities were endless, but in my heart, I knew. That afternoon, I did something I never thought I would do. I went back to our apartment when I knew Ethan would be out and looked at his laptop. He'd left it open, logged in, unusual for someone so suddenly password obsessed, almost as if he wanted me to find something. I didn't have to search long. His email was open, and right there in his inbox was a thread with Lauren, whose profile picture showed a striking blonde. The same one Jess had seen him with, I was certain. I should have stopped there, should have confronted him with what I knew, but something compelled me to click on the thread. Ethan, you were incredible yesterday. My apartment felt empty after you left. How much longer before you end things with her? You promised it would be soon. His reply, after the promotion comes through. Her father's golf buddies with the CEO. I need to play this carefully. Just a few more weeks of this charade. The room seemed to spin around me. 3 years of my life reduced to a charade, a stepping stone for his career ambitions. I scrolled through more messages, each one more damning than the last. Ethan and Lauren had been seeing each other for nearly 8 months, almost the same amount of time he'd been discussing marriage with me. But the true gut punch came when I clicked on a voice message Lauren had sent him. I listened to your conversation with Marcus about her. So harsh, but I get it. You're just doing what you have to do to get ahead. What conversation? What had he said about me? I searched further and found it buried in older messages. A recording Ethan had accidentally sent Lauren while out with his friend Marcus. He'd meant to send her a quick, thinking of you message, but had inadvertently recorded their entire conversation at the bar. With shaking hands, I pressed play and listened to the man I loved systematically tear apart every aspect of my character. She's completely useless, Ethan's voice said clearly. Can't cook worth a damn. Spends too much time on that dead-end job she thinks is a career. I'm only with her because her family has connections. Once I get that promotion, I'm out. Marcus's voice responded, Isn't that a bit cold, man? You've been together, 3 years? 3 years of my life invested in the long game. Ethan replied with a laugh that felt like ice water down my spine. Her father's practically offering me a position at his firm. Her mother keeps bringing up grandchildren. And meanwhile, I've got Lauren for everything else I need. It's the perfect setup. And Chloe has no clue? Chloe sees what she wants to see. Trust me, she's completely clueless. I sat there staring at the screen long after the recording ended. Clueless, useless, a means to an end, the perfect setup. Each word burned into my mind like a brand. I forwarded the recording to my own email, then carefully restored his laptop exactly as I'd found it. I left the apartment and walked for hours, processing what I'd discovered and planning what would come next. Because one thing was perfectly clear. Ethan wasn't the only one who could play the long game. For the next 2 weeks, I was the epitome of the loving, supportive girlfriend. I listened enthusiastically to his fabricated stories about work, pretended not to notice when he came home smelling of unfamiliar perfume, and even picked up his dry cleaning without commenting on the lipstick stain I found on his collar. Meanwhile, I methodically documented everything. Screenshots of emails, times he claimed to be working late that I could verify he wasn't at the office. The recording, which I listened to repeatedly until every poisonous word was committed to memory. I arranged a meeting with my company's IT specialist under the guise of setting up security for an upcoming event. In reality, I wanted advice on creating multiple backups of my evidence. By the time I left his office, I had the recording and screenshots stored in 3 different cloud services on a flash drive and sent to my personal email. 2 days later, Ethan came home beaming. "It's official," he announced, picking me up and spinning me around. "I got the promotion. Senior account manager, effective next month." I plastered on my best surprised face. "That's amazing. We need to celebrate." "Absolutely," he agreed, kissing me deeply. "Let's do dinner this weekend. Somewhere special." "How about we host a dinner here?" I suggested. "Invite your parents, mine, maybe Marcus. Make it a real celebration." Ethan hesitated for just a fraction of a second, so brief anyone else might have missed it. But I was looking for it now, hyper aware of his every reaction. "That sounds perfect," he said finally. "This Saturday?" "Saturday it is." I kissed him back, my mind already racing ahead to the final act of this charade. I spent the next 3 days preparing. I ordered catering from Ethan's favorite restaurant. No need for him to comment on my useless cooking skills. I selected his favorite wines, created a beautiful table setting, and even bought a new dress for the occasion, elegant but subdued in navy blue. Saturday arrived, and with it came our guests. Ethan's parents, who had always been coolly polite to me, my parents, who were genuinely thrilled about Ethan's promotion, and Marcus, who couldn't quite meet my eyes when he greeted me. Dinner progressed smoothly through the appetizers and main course. Ethan was in his element, charming everyone with stories about his hard work and dedication. My father raised a toast to Ethan's bright future, hinting once again about a position at his firm when the time is right. As dessert was being served, Ethan clinked his glass for attention. "I have another announcement to make," he said, his eyes shining with triumph. "This promotion isn't the only change coming up." My heart raced. Was he about to break up with me right here in front of everyone? Had I miscalculated? But instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "Chloe," he said, turning to me with practiced sincerity. "These past 3 years have been the best of my life. I couldn't have achieved any of this without your support." He got down on one knee beside my chair as gasps and murmurs rippled around the table. My mother's hands flew to her chest in delight. My father was beaming. "Will you marry me?" Ethan asked, opening the box to reveal a diamond ring that must have cost at least 3 months' salary. Time seemed to stand still as all eyes turned to me. This was Ethan's moment of triumph, the culmination of his long game. The perfect setup, indeed. I looked down at him, this man I had loved so completely, and felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. "Before I answer," I said softly, reaching for my phone, "there's something I'd like everyone to hear." Ethan's expression flickered with confusion as I tapped the screen a few times, then placed the phone in the center of the table. "She's completely useless, can't cook worth a damn, spends too much time on that dead-end job she thinks is a career. I'm only with her because her family has connections. Once I get that promotion, I'm out." The recording played with perfect clarity in the silent dining room. I watched as Ethan's face drained of color, as his parents exchanged horrified glances, as my father's expression shifted from joy to fury. 3 years of my life invested in the long game. Her father's practically offering me a position at his firm. Her mother keeps bringing up grandchildren, and meanwhile, I've got Lauren for everything else I need. It's the perfect setup. Marcus stared down at his plate, unmoving. And Chloe has no clue? Chloe sees what she wants to see. Trust me, she's completely clueless. When the recording ended, the silence was deafening. Ethan remained frozen on one knee, the ring box trembling slightly in his hand. "To answer your question," I said, my voice steady despite the emotions swirling inside me, "no, I will not marry you, and I'm not as clueless as you thought." I stood up, smoothing my dress. "I've already packed your things. They're in boxes by the front door. You have until tomorrow evening to collect them, and then anything left goes to charity." "Chloe," he started, his voice a strangled whisper. I can explain. What's to explain? My father cut in. Standing so abruptly, his chair nearly toppled backward. We all heard exactly what you think of my daughter, what you plan to use our family for. Ethan's mother was the next to rise. Ethan Jeffrey Thompson. I have never been so ashamed in my life. One by one, our guests stood and backed away from the table, creating distance between themselves and Ethan, who remained on one knee as if petrified. Marcus? I said calmly, would you mind showing everyone out? I believe this dinner party is over. Marcus nodded wordlessly and began ushering the stunned guests toward the door. My mother embraced me tightly, whispering, "We'll call you tomorrow, sweetheart," before allowing herself to be led away. When everyone had gone, it was just Ethan and me in the dining room that had been set for a celebration and instead witnessed an execution. He finally stood, the ring box now closed in his fist. "How did you find the recording?" he asked, his voice hollow. "You really should be more careful about leaving your devices unlocked," I replied. "But that's not the important question here, is it?" "Chloe, what you heard. I was drunk talking nonsense to impress Marcus. I didn't mean any of it." I gave him a pitying look. The sad thing is, for a moment after I first heard it, I almost convinced myself of the same thing. That's how desperately I wanted to believe in us. I gestured to the engagement ring still clutched in his hand. "When exactly did you buy that?" "Before or after you decided I was your ticket to my father's firm?" "It's not that simple," he protested. "Yes, your connections were attractive initially, but I do care about you." "Just not as much as you care about Lauren," I said. "Or your promotion, or yourself." His expression hardened. "You had no right to go through my private messages." "And you had no right to waste 3 years of my life on a lie," I countered. "Consider us even." Ethan ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair, disheveling it for the first time since I'd known him. "What happens now?" "You've humiliated me in front of everyone." "No," I corrected him. "Your own words humiliated you. I simply pressed play." I walked to the front door and opened it, indicating the boxes stacked neatly in the hallway. "Your clothes, personal items, and the gifts I've given you over the years are all there. Your name is already off the lease. I spoke with the management company yesterday." "You can't just erase me from your life that easily," he said, following me to the door. "Actually, I can." I reached into my dress pocket and pulled out a business card. "This is for my lawyer. Any further communication should go through her." Ethan stared at the card, then at me, as if seeing me for the first time. "You're not the woman I thought you were." I smiled then, genuinely. "No, I'm not the clueless, useless person you described in that recording. I never was. That was just the version of me you created to justify using me." He took the card slowly, his shoulders slumping in defeat. "I really did love you, in my way." "Your way wasn't good enough," I said simply. "Goodbye, Ethan." After he left, I returned to the dining room and methodically cleared the table, packing away the untouched dessert, washing each dish with deliberate care. There were tears, of course. 3 years of memories, dreams, and plans don't dissolve without pain. But beneath the hurt was something stronger: pride in having stood up for myself, relief at discovering the truth before making an irreversible mistake. My phone buzzed with messages from family and friends, but I wasn't ready to talk about it yet. Instead, I changed into comfortable clothes, poured myself a glass of the expensive champagne Ethan had brought to celebrate his promotion, and sat by the window overlooking the city lights. The following morning, I woke to dozens of missed calls from my parents, from Jess, even from Ethan's mother. I returned my parents' call first, reassuring them that I was okay, just taking some time to process everything. "You should come stay with us for a while," my mother suggested, her voice thick with worry. "You shouldn't be alone right now." "I'm not alone, Mom," I said, surprised to find I meant it. "I have myself, and that's enough for now." My father got on the line next, his voice gruff with emotion. "I'm proud of you, Chloe. What you did took courage." "Thanks, Dad, but I'm not sure public humiliation counts as courage." "Standing up for yourself always counts as courage," he replied firmly. "And for what it's worth, That bastard deserved every second of it. When I finally checked my email, there was a message from Ethan, time-stamped 3:17 a.m. Chloe, I don't expect forgiveness, but I need you to know how sorry I am. What I said to Marcus was inexcusable. You deserve better than me, and I hope someday you find someone worthy of you. I'll come for my things tomorrow as you requested. Please let me know a time when you won't be there. I don't want to make this any harder for you. The apology felt hollow, a performative act from someone who'd been caught rather than someone truly remorseful. Still, I appreciated the gesture of collecting his things while I was out. I replied with a short message letting him know I'd be gone from noon until evening. That afternoon, I met Jess at our favorite cafe, a small, quiet place where we could talk without being overheard. I still can't believe you pulled that off, she said, shaking her head in amazement. When did my best friend become a mastermind of revenge? It wasn't revenge, I corrected her, stirring my latte absently. It was justice. Whatever you call it, it was legendary. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. But how are you really doing? The question caught me off guard. Everyone else had been so focused on the dramatic ending that they hadn't bothered to ask how I was feeling about the loss itself. Honestly, I'm numb. I feel like I'm grieving, but not for Ethan, for the relationship I thought we had, for the future I'd planned. I paused, gathering my thoughts. The worst part isn't that he cheated. It's that he never actually saw me. The real me. Jess nodded sympathetically. Men like Ethan don't see people. They see opportunities. And girl, you are not an opportunity. You're a goddamn destination. That made me laugh, breaking through the cloud of melancholy that had followed me since the dinner party. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You've just been too busy being in love to notice. 3 days later, I received a delivery at my office. A massive arrangement of red roses with a card from Ethan. I was wrong about everything. Please give me another chance. I took a photo of the flowers, then asked our receptionist to donate them to the hospital across the street. I texted the photo to Jess with the caption, Day 3 of Ethan's apology tour. At least the patients at Chicago General will enjoy these. She replied immediately, He called me yesterday trying to get me to talk to you. I told him I'm Team Chloe all the way. The roses were just the beginning. Over the next 2 weeks, gifts arrived with alarming frequency. Jewelry, books, even tickets to a sold-out show I'd mentioned wanting to see months ago. Each came with increasingly desperate notes. I miss you. I can't stop thinking about you. Please just talk to me. I donated everything except the books, which I added to my shelf as a reminder that even beautiful things can come from ugly situations. Ethan's attempts to reconcile grew increasingly intrusive. He started showing up at places he knew I frequented, my favorite coffee shop, the yoga studio where I took Sunday classes, even the farmer's market where I bought fresh produce every Saturday. This is getting creepy, Jess said when I told her about running into him for the third time in a week. Maybe you should get a restraining order. No, I said firmly. That would just give him more power, make him think he's significant enough to be feared. He's not. Instead, I changed my routine, finding new places to enjoy. It wasn't ideal, but it felt like reclaiming my life rather than hiding from him. At work, I threw myself into planning the company's annual gala with renewed vigor. My boss noticed the change in me. You're different lately, she observed one afternoon as we reviewed vendor proposals. More assertive. I considered her words. I guess I've realized that speaking my mind isn't just a right. It's a responsibility. She smiled approvingly. Well, it looks good on you. In fact, I've been meaning to talk to you about taking on more senior projects. How would you feel about heading up our new international division? The opportunity was exactly what I'd been working toward for years, a chance to expand my horizons and grow professionally. Before Ethan, I would have jumped at it without hesitation. During our relationship, I'd actually downplayed my career ambitions, afraid they might interfere with our future together. I'd love to, I replied, feeling a flutter of excitement for the first time in weeks. That night, I called my parents to share the news. My mother was thrilled, but my father sounded distracted. Dad, is everything okay? There was a pause before he answered. Ethan came to see me at the office today. My stomach clenched. What? Why? He wanted to explain himself. Said he was getting professional help, that he'd realized what he lost. My father's tone made it clear he wasn't impressed. I told him it was too late for explanations. What did he say to that? He asked if I thought you'd ever forgive him. My father chuckled grimly. I told him my daughter wasn't in the forgiveness business when it came to liars. After we hung up, I sat in my apartment, our apartment once, and truly considered the question. Could I forgive Ethan? Not for his sake, but for my own? To let go of the anger and hurt that still flared up unexpectedly, catching me off guard in quiet moments? The next day, I had my answer. I drafted a brief email. Ethan, I've received your gifts and messages. I appreciate that you're sorry for what happened, but I need you to understand that there is no path to reconciliation between us. The trust is irreparably broken. Please respect my boundaries and stop contacting me, my friends, and my family. I wish you well, but I need to move forward with my life without you in it. Chloe. I felt lighter after sending it, as if I'd finally put down a heavy burden I'd been carrying since that day in the coffee shop when I first suspected something was wrong. 2 months after what my friends now referred to as the dinner party massacre, I received an unexpected email from Lauren. The subject line read simply, I owe you an apology. I hesitated before opening it, unsure if I wanted to reopen barely healing wounds. Curiosity won out. Chloe, I don't expect forgiveness, but I need you to know how sorry I am. Ethan told me you were cold, career-obsessed, and using him for status. He made it sound like your relationship was already over in all but name. I believed him because I wanted to. The night of your dinner party, he came to my apartment in a rage, blaming me for recording that conversation. That's when I realized that everything he'd told me about you was a lie. I'm not asking to be friends. I know that's impossible. But I thought you deserved to know that he manipulated both of us. I sat back in my chair, processing her words. There was a certain symmetry to it. Both of us fed carefully crafted lies to serve Ethan's purposes. I wrote back a single line. Thank you for your honesty. Her reply came within minutes. I've ended things with him. Just thought you should know. I found myself wondering if Ethan had truly loved either of us, or if we were both just convenient props in the narrative he'd constructed for himself. Then I realized it didn't matter. What mattered was that I was free of him and his lies. The weeks turned into months, and slowly, the raw wound of betrayal began to heal. I dated casually, never allowing myself to become too invested too quickly. I traveled for work and pleasure, filling my passport with stamps from places Ethan and I had talked about visiting but never had. On the anniversary of what would have been our 4th year together, I took myself out for a fancy dinner, ordered the most expensive champagne on the menu, and toasted to my own resilience. Special occasion? The waiter asked, noticing I was dining alone. Yes, I replied with a genuine smile. I'm celebrating the bullet I dodged. 6 months later, my career was thriving. I'd been promoted to senior events coordinator and was currently orchestrating our company's largest international conference to date. My personal life had found a new rhythm. Dinners with friends, weekend trips, the occasional date when someone interesting came along. I ran into Ethan only once, at an industry networking event. He'd lost weight, and his once immaculate appearance had a slightly rumpled quality. Our eyes met across the room, and for a moment, I felt a phantom pain of what we'd once had, or what I'd thought we had. He started to approach me, but stopped when he saw Marcus join me with a glass of wine. Marcus had reached out a month after the dinner party, deeply apologetic for not warning me about Ethan's true character. We'd developed an unexpected friendship, bonding over terrible dating stories and professional ambitions. Is that? Marcus started, following my gaze. Yes, I answered, turning my back on Ethan and focusing on Marcus instead. But he's not important anymore. Later that evening, I received a text from an unknown number. You look happy. I'm glad. I truly am sorry for everything. E. I didn't respond. Some chapters are better left closed. The truth is, I am happy. Happier than I was with Ethan, even during the good times. Because now my happiness is built on authenticity rather than illusion, on strength rather than perceived usefulness, on self worth rather than validation from someone else. Sometimes I think about that recording, about how hearing those cruel words was both the worst and best thing that could have happened to me. The worst because it shattered my heart. The best because it freed me from a man who never deserved it in the first place. People often ask if I regret playing that recording in front of everyone. If I couldn't have confronted Ethan privately, spared everyone the drama, but when someone calls you useless behind your back while looking you in the eye with promises of forever, they forfeit the right to a gentle goodbye. Besides, as my grandmother always said, the truth will set you free, but first it'll make you mad as hell. In my case, the truth didn't just make me mad. It made me stronger, wiser, more discerning about who gets a seat at my table. And that recording? I deleted every copy the day after Ethan moved out. Not to protect him, but to free myself from carrying his voice, his words, into my future. Some might call that dinner party revenge. I call it closure. A year to the day after the dinner party, I received a small package in the mail. Inside was a beautiful leather-bound journal with a note from my father. For writing the next chapter of your story. The first entry I made was simple. Today marks 1 year since I chose myself. Everything that follows is because I had the courage to press play.